The Lived Experiences Project is a grassroots story collection initiative that seeks to amplify the voices of anyone who has experienced racism and identity-based mistreatment in Needham. They recently released their first report documenting 93 such stories of people who live, study, work, or visit Needham. Municipal producer Yusha Wen talked with its organizer Anna Giraldo Kerr and the primary author of the report, Nicole Argo, to find out more about their mission.
Give me a brief introduction of how you came up with the idea and why you are doing this.
After George Floyd was murdered, through the Facebook page, there were some comments starting to show up of different people who had experienced racism. And I noticed that there were maybe 3 different reactions. Some people expressed their concern, sorry this happened to you, good luck next time. You know, just they kind of acknowledged it and moved on. Other people said, wow, this is really bad. You know, it did happen to me too. And they will tell another story, right? And then there was another group of people which was saying, what are you talking about? Why are you being so negative? You know, what it probably was just a joke. And I said, this is real. People are not paying attention. Something has to open their eyes. Something or someone, how do we open their eyes? How do we?
Anna Giraldo Kerr runs a leadership development and coaching organization that focuses on inclusion and equity. A friend connected her with Nicole Argo, who conducts academic research for a nonprofit whose mission is to prevent identity-based violence and division in communities.
Let's develop a platform that will amplify those voices, that will provide evidence for the discrimination and racism that might exist here in Needham, and that can lead to a larger call for change. Things change when we understand, where our beliefs change, we understand how and are aware of what's happening, and we feel for others. And stories do that. Once we feel for others, we change our behaviors and we want to create communities we feel good about.
The analysis of all the collected stories shows over half of the mistreatments are considered programmatic and procedural, and 1/3 are verbal or microaggressions. Since the report includes an additional dataset of survey responses collected by alumni of the Needham Public Schools, Nicole Argo did point out in the report that the result would more heavily represent school-based issues. Even so, the combined datasets still note school plays a large role in respondents' experiences of discrimination. The alumni survey identifies the involvement of school authority and fellow students in 91% of mistreatments, and the Lived Experiences Project survey identified 54% from school authority and fellow students, followed by 11% from law enforcement. But even with limitations, the collected responses can still serve as a preliminary diagnosis for the existence of racism and discrimination in Needham.
This piece of really engaging in dialogue and awareness is really important, because once we get there, then we can finally have the conversation about who we want to be, who we, as the full group, right, want to be in Needham. And then we can make the change. But until then, what you have is people who are ready for certain types of change, who aren't always listening or able to understand the other perspectives, or people who don't want change and interpret calls for it as X or Y. You know, these people take their stances and aren't hearing one another, aren't understanding one another, and aren't seeing each other as a we. So that's, to me, urgent, because who wants to live in a community like that?
We were able to collect 93 stories in 2 months with very little outreach. There's so much outpour of wanting to share the story. That in itself, I want to highlight, because that means that we've barely scratched the surface.
Giraldo Kerr said realizing the existence of the problem is only the first step, and we are still far from being ready for solutions. The next step should be a deeper look into the breadth and causes of the issue. She recommended a town-wide audit report.
They need to go deeper and more analysis, more data points to collect in order for them to understand the breadth of how the system is really creating these situations. The report points to different areas. School is one, the police is another. Then there's some businesses also that are that are doing profiling, right? So maybe, and there's also some comments about housing. So those are the pockets. How do we look at those pockets in more depth?
Survey respondents revealed feelings of anger, fear, a sense of exclusion and humiliation, mistrusting the community and its institutions, which Nicole Argo wrote in the report has weakened the social fabric of our community.
Certainly, the recipients of bias and discrimination suffer. We have so much research on that. But it might surprise people to know that so do all those people who are not the recipient of bias and discrimination. Whether they're promulgating it or they're just bystanders, they feel the exclusion, they feel guilt and empathy for the people receiving it. They feel like something's wrong and they feel disempowered. They feel part of something that is not fair. And these things also have impacts, right? These are ruptures to our community. And there's a lesson there, right? This hurts us all.